Hello, and welcome to episode 216 of the Backlog Breakdown. We are a video game podcast where we seek to encourage and equip the church to engage the medium of video games wisely and responsibly. I'm one of your hosts, Nate, and with me today is my co-host, my friend, my brother in Christ, Joshua. Hey, Josh.
Hey, buddy.
What's up, dude?
How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. We are, as per the usual, we have talked entirely too much before hitting record. But all things considered, yeah. If you want the real meat and potatoes of all of that, go listen to the phone call. But anyways, we are here to talk about. We are a video game podcast, so let's just sort of jump in. Do you have anything for the backlog report?
So the things that I have to report on, I did talk about in last week's phone call, but still trudging along, trying to think of the right verb there.
Plotting.
Yes. Hey, that's a good one.
Plotting.
Plodding along in Octopath Traveler 2, enjoying that a lot. Just because I like those games, and it makes me want to play Bravely Default again, and it makes me... Oh, okay. Well, here, let me just insert this really quickly, is that I came across a phrase that I had never heard this past week, and it unlocked something from memories of Bravely Default, and a pun in that game that I had never understood until now. But one of the main characters...
Like this, am I?
No, actually, I think you will. Have you ever heard of the term noblesse oblige?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I had never heard that before. At least it completely went over my head. But it's the idea that the nobles are obligated to the people whom they serve. You know, that you don't just rule with an iron fist, but that there are certain rights and privileges that upper class have, but that they need to protect.
The inferred
others.
Responsibility of privileged people to act with generosity and nobility towards those less privileged.
There you go.
I looked that up. So.
Hey, it's a nice, concise definition for this little rabbit trail that I'm running down. Anyways, one of the main characters in Bravely Default.
Agnes.
Her
Oblige.
Agnes, yes. And her last name is Oblige. And in that game, her name is spelled Agnes. So I, just reading it, I thought it was Agnes. But the whole game is voice acted. And they keep calling her Agnes. So her name is Agnes. And I didn't realize, that's why. Because Agnes Oblige is referencing noblesse oblige and this term. And if you understand who she is in the game, you will understand why and what certain obligations she has to the rest of the characters throughout that game. So anyways, that's just a little tidbit that has some spoilers kind of in it as well. Anyways, I like Bravely Default and I like Octopath Traveler, playing Octopath Traveler 2. I mentioned played a little bit of Splatoon Raiders and having fun with that. I mentioned I picked up Dragon Quest VII Reimagined for Switch 2, so I have to take a +1 to my beatdown score for that. But I also get to take away a point. I get a -1 because I rolled credits on Theater Rhythm Final Bar Line. I don't know how many. I mean, it must have been at least 30, 40 hours that I've put into that game because I started it like beginning of this year, dude. It kind of hit me of like, I've been playing this off and on for it's July. 7 months now, almost 8 months. That's kind of crazy how long that took, but it's a lot of fun. I like that game a lot. There's still more to do, but rolled credits and got like a whole kind of ending sequence, which is fun. So that's what I've been playing. So my score, +1, -1. So that means it stays the same at -6 so far for the year. So how about you, dude? What you been
playing? Pretty much just more return, spent a little bit of time in. So Destiny, just like not even going to really mention it. Been playing that off and on. It's still in the best spot it's ever been forever and ever until they shut the servers down.
Mm.
So yeah, been playing a little bit of that. Fired up some Returnal earlier this week. Uh, it's kind of like I'm kind of in that weird like just trying to get something to stick, but Tunic sort of latching onto that. Did fire up some Diablo 4 to sort of like just play around with that. Also did a run of Universal Paperclip, which
Okay.
and I forgot to mention this during the punk call, but it's a pretty interesting game. Like it's definitely a conversation piece, kind of stuff. Like Mark and I are sort of talking about. Yeah, I definitely think there's potentially a book club episode for Universal Paperclip, or maybe even a
Oh,
full like
okay.
because yeah, it's like what was that game that Wes had us play? Like the game dev sim thing.
Game
It's
dev
just called
story.
Game Dev Story. It's
Mhm.
comparable to that. In but
Okay.
I think too part of the story of this of the game and how it came to be and sort of what some of the things it's exploring. Pretty interesting conversation I think to be had there. Uh, it's very much like it is very much like was it Candy Box 2 or whatever? Like
Mhm.
it's very
Mm.
comparable to that sort of
Mm.
like it's that gameplay loop
Okay.
where it's just like anyways, they're comparable. Not beat for beat, but
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a free to play game. I didn't download anything, so I don't know if you could really say like because I didn't take a point for acquisition, so I'm not going to take a negative point for beating it. I don't know,
Mhm.
like whatever. Um, but yeah, did play that. But yeah, I haven't picked up anything, so yeah, it's just kind of like, I'm still at plus
There we
one,
go.
so haven't beaten
Gotcha.
anything. Just at plus one. And if you guys are wondering if this is the first time you're jumping in here, well, hey, we're glad to have you. But if you're wondering what we're talking about, the backlog beatdown, you're listening to the backlog breakdown. But the beatdown is a meta that we run all year long, and then TLDL, if you want on this, is that essentially it's a metagame that prioritizes playing what you already own. Take negative points for beating games. When you buy games, you add positive points, sort of adding, taking away from the backlog. That's the kind of thing. If there's a little bit more to it than that. There are some rules and some sort of like interesting wrinkles and complications. Sounds like not optimal, but like, anyways, yeah, it's a neat little system. You know, dozens of us, maybe a dozen people actually really like. Maybe dozens. I don't know. Um, there are dozens of us who
Dozens.
play, but that we know about active in our Discord. Maybe might be a dozen. Anyways, but we like it. We think it's useful, and if it sounds even a little bit interesting to you guys, well, if feel free to reach out to us or join us in the Discord to check out those rules. Okay. With that being said, we are a video game podcast. We are here to actually talk about video game stuff. And
Mm.
so the entire premise is last episode, we talked about sort of how about now, why now is the best time to address your backlog, or
Right.
as I like to call it, the backlog method, according to Sheila Buff. So
Just do it. Just do it.
just do it.
Do it now.
Don't let your dreams
Don't
be
let
dreams.
your dreams be dreams.
Yeah, dude.
Just do
That's
it.
such a great video. It's
Yeah, it was pretty good.
just unhinged. I just appreciate that man. He's an
Yeah.
odd duck. But part of that, and so what we wanted to do is take this time to talk a little bit about some of the tips and tricks that we have, either used ourselves or that we have come across. So I think one of the most sort of organic places, and this will tie into sort of one of the other recommendations, but I think one of the things that we've done is like aside from the whole metagame thing where it's like sort of like you have this like point system thing, right? And that like make the numbers go up, or in this one, in the case of our metagame, make the numbers go down,
Yeah.
way down into the negatives even. But I think
Hey.
last year we added the locked and loaded rule, which allowed for creating bonuses. And one, there were people who were asking for opportunities to like do bonus points and things like this, and so a
Sure.
little bit of it was like a sort of like, okay, we'll condescend. Condescend feels really condescending when I say it like that, but it's like we will we'll offer this as an opportunity. But what it really was sort of this. I think to me, and this kind of came from something that you had done, and so what I'm going to say is like, for me, when I looked at it, it did two things. One, it helped people to think about their backlog in sort of tactical ways, in the sense of
Mhm.
like I'm going to set a number, and sort of like, so I'm going to set like a bit of a SMART goal, simple,
Yeah.
measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. Right. And I think it actually pretty much meets all of those
Mhm.
criteria. But anyways, it lets you do that, but it also sort of, oh shoot, I think I might have just like, I was going to say it does two things, but it lets you think about it tactically, but it also gives you, it gives you a bit of an artificial constraint. Like, and I
'Kay.
actually think that those things are really, it gives you a little bit of a form, but it does kind of like, it's that the friction of buffers, kind of like when we were talking, like one of the things I really enjoyed about it reminds me of like the good old days of when TRG was still around and wasn't just an absolute like, den of chaos and high
Hive of scum and
villainy.
villainy. Yeah.
Yes. But also like it sort of reminded me of like the days when like the pub was still kind of cool. Um yes, I said that was still kind of cool. I know some people
Yeah.
still like it.
Also,
But
I don't think that the Reform gamers were ever a wretched hive of scum and villainy. I was just referencing Star Wars. I understand what you're talking about, but I don't actually think they were ever that bad. Anyways, yeah.
anyways, but there were conversations about like the usefulness of confessionalism and all this other stuff. And basically it was sort of like one of these things where it's like the confessions, one of the best illustrations, and I'm getting there, as I know this is kind of all over the place, but that like the confessions offer sort of like guide rails, and that you don't go outside of those guide rails. And I think that's kind of like the idea of like the locked and loaded rule is that in creating sort of like boundaries to a certain extent, it's actually helpful.
Hmm.
That's so it helps you to think about it in a way that's like kind of a little tactical, strategic, but also like it, by creating some limits there, you it's helpful. You don't go
Yeah.
too far afield.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. And just coming into this conversation, even from talking about the beatdown, it's kind of like, hey, there's the obvious kind of road or thing that we have in terms of tips and tricks for your backlog. It's like, hey, this is what we do. Like every year we run this game and we found it to be helpful. I know I've personally found it to be helpful. And so we continually do it as its popularity kind of rises and falls. That's totally fine. Because at the end of the day, I'm not really competing with anyone else. I'm competing with
Mm-hmm.
myself because I want to, beat down my backlog. And so I do think as we consider this, there's not really much in terms of like, hey, this is going to be new and revolutionary that we recommend that you do in trying to tackle your backlog. This is more of like a compilation. It's almost like a greatest hits for us of like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
what are we doing right now? What have we found is really useful? And so I'd say like if you boil down the beatdown, well, there's two different ways that we can go with this. Because I completely agree, kind of the strategy of some of these things. There's more there that I want to get to in just a moment. But I think if you boil down the beatdown, what it does is it incentivizes playing your backlog. it does also, in the way that we have compiled the rule set, it does also give some leniency, of, okay, now that you've beaten so many games, like, okay, you feel a little bit, you don't feel as, it doesn't feel as much of an obligation that, like, hey, you can let up after you beat a few games off the backlog. Now you can play, a newer game or something like that. It does recognize the rule set that we currently have. It does recognize, hey, you're going to get gifts from friends. You're going to get other games coming in throughout the year, and that's part of it. That's kind of how we've tried to balance the point system. So, anyways, that is getting into a little bit more of the details. But I'd say, again, boiling it down, really what I found helpful is just incentivizing playing the backlog, because my natural bent is, hey, if it's on sale, then depending on the amount of the sale, is directly proportional to how much I actually want the game and how much I think that I'm going to purchase the game. And then that equals out to, okay, let's, click buy or whatever. Let's pick it up at the store. So what I mean by that is, if something is on a good enough sale, even if I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard of that game once. If I have any interest in playing it, if it's on sale for, $2.99, they're just trying to get rid of these. Oh, I'll probably pick it up. That's just my natural bent. But then if there's a game that, I've been wanting for a long time and it's 20% off. Oh, okay. Well, if this is the only time it's been 20% off, like, I will scoop up that battery. If it's a Nintendo, a triple A Nintendo game, like, I'll go for it.
If it goes on, dude, if you're seeing Nintendo games go on sale for 20% at any point in time, people need to know about that.
Scoop
immediately
that up. Yeah. Tears of the Kingdom for $50. What?
And I think that's like kind of like how even sort of like the backlog problem starts, is because it's like, I'll buy that for $1.
Yep.
Like, yeah, I'll pay $5 for that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, $10. And it's like, and it isn't. Yeah, it's like it is almost sort of like the psychology of the deal actually kind of like creates problems.
Yep, definitely. And so, especially as I've gotten older, as I have a larger backlog, as I've accumulated more games than I've been able to play, and as that continues to, even though it's slowed down, it does continue, because not every game is created equal. Obviously, Octopath Traveler 2 is a 70+ hour game. Like, I fully recognize that even and I know we've had discussions about, price to hours, length of the game is not a great metric. But what I'm saying, for the sake of this conversation, is we're talking about backlogs, is time is a factor as well into what you are able to play. And so even if I have a stack of 20 games on my backlog, if they're 7-hour games, that's a lot more doable than a stack of 10 huge JRPGs, 60-hour games. Then that stack of 10 games is a 600-hour commitment. Again, I recognize that means playing the game all the way through. If it's not a game that, after a while, like, it just doesn't click, I don't want to continue. All that is kind of contingent. That's fine. I understand all that. But for the sake of this conversation about tips and tricks for actually destroying the backlog that you currently have, the first thing that I've already mentioned twice, I'll mention it again, is find a way to incentivize playing the backlog over picking up a new game. Okay, that's the first part. The second part, that is, I think, reflected in the beatdown, and that you mentioned as well, but it is recognizing, and here's where I was going when I said that I'm older and that I have these games on my backlog. Recognizing the value of your game time and what you can realistically play. So I think that's something that I've found a lot of value in as we've added certain rules to the beatdown, like this locked and loaded list. Is it forced me to look at my backlog in terms of, oh, how long are these games, and how much can I reasonably expect to be playing on a
Mhm.
consistent basis? And then when you look at that, like, oh, all of a sudden my backlog of 100 games on the low end here becomes, multiply that by, let's say, 15 hours each. At 100 games, that's 1,500 hours. Really?
Mhm.
1,500 hours? Like, how long, how many years is that going to take me to actually play through all of these games? And what that does is that it makes me more picky for the games that I have in my backlog, and byproduct of that, of if I do ever pick up other games, which, let's face it, I am still picking up other games. Literally just talked about it earlier in the podcast that I purchased a Dragon Warrior game, which is, original version was 120 hours. I believe this one has some quality of life stuff to make it a bit faster, but it's still a huge game. Um, it has made me reevaluate the games that I play. And what I mean by that is to actually think through, how much do I realistically want to play this game? Because there have to be, I mean, frankly, with my backlog where it is right now, frankly, I'm never going to get to like half the games that I own.
Mhm.
Realistically, in my lifetime, I'm probably not going to play half of what I have on my backlog right now.
Well, and I think that's an important sort of like, also, I think, step or tip is actually take stock of your backlog. Like,
Yeah.
you and I
Yeah.
have both sat down and gone through, and by doing this, like, too, it's like also like going through that process. I think you and I both talked about, I just called, like, I was like, "Oh, like, I have, like, 800 games," or whatever, whatever the
Mhm.
number was available, through all the different things. I went
Yep.
through and I called that number, and I was like, by going through, I started asking the question, "What are the games on this list that I actually wanna play?"
Yep.
Like, which was still an obscene number, you know?
Right. Sure.
But by doing that, instead of 800, now I've got 300 or whatever the
Mhm.
actual numbers are. And so I think that's part of it, because it's like you said, it's a by taking stock of that, like, one, yeah, you can do some like sort of just like, napkin math, sort of like time cost analysis kind of stuff, where you can say,
Mhm.
like, just make the assumption like each one of these is like 15-ish hours roughly. Like, how many hours is that it's like, yeah, like, you've got 100 games on that backlog. Each one of them is roughly 15 hours. That's 1,500 hours of game time. Um, and so, like, when you put it in that framework, it's like, oh, like, actually, like, yeah, I'm not that interested in X, Y, and Z. Like, I
Yes.
picked this up, and so I think that taking stock and actually prioritizing and saying like, "Oh, this is something I really wanna play," versus this is that's a useful distinction,
Yes. Yeah.
because
Absolutely. As opposed to, oh, I had some interest in this and it was on sale.
yeah,
You know?
and sort of like, if you do that too, that's also gonna, like, sober you up a little bit in regards to sort of, again,
Mhm.
sort of like that impulse, like, "Oh, this is $5." Like, whereas, like, you actually pay more attention and you spend more time actually, like, cultivating, like, wish lists, and it's not just like, "I'm mildly interested in this thing, throw it on a wish list." It's like, no.
Mhm.
Like, is there, like, do I have, like, am I interested in this? Do I actually have an expectation where I will play this?
Yes.
You know,
Yep.
or, like, at least a desire to play this that is more
Mhm.
than just like, why not?" Because I think that is one of the things, like, and you even said it too. It's like, as we've gotten older, the demands on our times have gotten greater, and it's just like gaming, while it's still like, it's a lowercase priority, it does get bumped pretty quickly. Like, it's
Mhm.
like one of those things that like, hey, if I have time for it or I make time for it, great. But also, if I have work to do or family obligations or whatever, those take precedence. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I think one of the other things too is, yeah, just and I think I've seen you do this, and it's like, but like, do like a realistic, and this will kind of lead into something else, I guess, but like, do
Mhm.
a realistic analysis of how much time per week you can actually give to gaming. And again, this is like
Mhm.
something I think we've both done too, where it's like, you know, I think even a friend of the show and fellow Playwell Network member Mark Erickson has talked about this, where it's like, hey, like, the average gamer puts 10 to 15 hours in a game. Do you put more in that or less than that or whatever? It's like, and where do you
Mhm.
make that? Like, where does that time happen? Where do you make that time fit? How do you prioritize it? All those sorts of things. So, like, generate like a realistic expectation for time that you can actually afford to gaming. You
Mhm.
can afford to give gaming, rather. Um, Because I think that is, like, one of the things in being a responsible adult, like, and this is, like, sort of rehashing old material, but, like, time is really in so many ways, it's really the only currency you have, and how you spend it, you need to be wise with that, like, as
Mhm.
stewards, like, you're going to give an answer for all the
Yeah.
time that you
Yeah.
spend, and there are foolish ways to like, everybody wastes time. So, like,
Sure.
and obviously you don't want to do you don't want to do that, but you're going to. But like, it's sort of like, I think one of the biggest things that we've sort of harped on is like, do not I think one of the most how about I say this? I think one of the most sort of like pressing examples to me is that meme where it's like, it shows the guy holding like it's showing his life, and he's holding the block for games, and it's like there's sort of like this like tower in front of him, and he's looking at the tower and it's full. There's no more room for the games. And so what he does is what so many of us have done before. I call it the stupid dad rule, where it's like, instead of just going to bed and going to sleep, I'm going to do the stupid dad thing. I'm going to stay up and do the thing that I want to do, but I really should just go to bed thing. Like,
Mhm.
that's the stupid dad move, where it's like, just go to bed. So that and the thing is, because what happens is you get up the next day and you do more stupid things, but now you do them tired. Um,
Yeah.
but it is like, the sacrificing sleep for video games. And that's sort of like,
Mhm.
again, that's like the low hanging fruit one that, is kind of going around. It's like, actually, like, that's really pretty, it's not just foolish. I think that borders on being wicked. Because
Mm.
it's sort of, there's a proper ordering. Like, and you and I
Mhm.
have talked about, like, you don't like sleeping. Well, actually, you do like sleeping. You don't like the time that you feel like you lose by
Yeah.
sleeping. And yes, I was
Right.
very intentional in throwing up those air quotes, because you're not losing time,
Right.
you know?
Mhm.
Like, you don't like the limitation that sleep puts on you. But
Right.
I think that is really helpful, because what that does is it actually, like, by sort of doing that sort of time analysis, and again, even if it's only just like napkin math kind of thing, try to set like a realistic number. You can reclaim a lot. Like, I think there's a lot of time that, like, people lose to like smartphones or whatever. And it's like, you
Mhm.
can reclaim a good bit of that. You just have to be more intentional, which sort of, there's a video that I want to talk about a little bit. But, there's a few videos that have kind of been, and principles that have kind of been like shared in the group at different times. And so, but before I get into that, do you have anything sort of else that you wanted to throw out there? You know,
Well, to reiterate kind of what you were talking about there with the amount of time that you can spend in gaming. Well, even before that, talking about taking stock of what you have, I think is great. It's worked really well for me in that I just did a simple. I had at one time my games on an Excel sheet. I have not kept up with that, so I have way more than what was on there. Anyways, I had a row. No, I had a column. Excuse me. I had a column for a rating for the game, but like before playing it, that was basically how much I wanted to play this game on a scale of 1 to 5. And that includes like how good I think the game will be. And I realized after ranking most of my games that I shouldn't be spending time on anything less than a 4. Really, with the amount of games that I have, I wanted to take stock and realistically, because I have so many, I really should focus my time on the 5s and with the occasional 4. Anything less than that, okay, you can think of a one-off. Oh, maybe it's a co-op game that you play, when a buddy comes over. Okay, fine. I'm not saying don't play those. What I'm saying is that really my focus needs to be, because if realistically I'm never going to get around to all of these games, then I really ought to focus on the ones that I think are the best. And it also made me judge a little bit harsher as well. Of you'd think it would be the other way around. Oh no, everything's a 5 then. No, actually, it makes me think like, oh, if I can't get around to all these, then yeah, maybe this game that I've heard is a cult classic, maybe
just not for
it's
me.
just not my thing. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll push it off. So in taking stock, I completely agree. The taking stock with what you have, with how much you want to play it or how good you think it's going to be, and then like you said, also how long these games take. That's a good way of thinking through if you just have the time to play it, because what you mentioned, and this is something that I did at the start of the year, is what's a reasonable amount of time that I could spend playing games? And I thought, you know what, just keep it simple and say 30 minutes a day. Because I'll go, 3-4 days without touching anything. And then, maybe on a Saturday, I'll play for a couple hours or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So really 30 minutes. And then I probably will play more than that, just on average. But if I just keep it simple to 30 minutes, that gives me 178 hours for the year. That's not that many games, really.
Mm-hmm.
With the amount of games that I have in my backlog, 178 doesn't stretch very far. And again, I recognize it's probably going to be closer to 200, 250 maybe. But if I have 178 to kind of throw around to work with, okay, now where do I slot in the games that I really want? These 5-star games that I've really wanted to get around to, and where do I do it? And then from there, you can get granular and think about the platform as well. Because I'm a dad, I play a lot on Switch, because I can be on the elliptical when I'm playing versus something I have to sit down in front of a computer or in front of a TV for. So anyways, that's further down the road. But I do think that when we talk about taking stock, I think how much you want to play or how good you think the game is going to be and how much time it's going to take have been really helpful for me in plugging in, okay, this my game time. I only have so much, so I want to focus on these particular games and play through these backlog games.
Yeah. I had a thought while you were talking and it completely slipped me. So it couldn't have been that important or that great. Or
Taking
it
stock
could
of
just be,
games, ranking them, and checking out how much time, how long it takes to beat the game, how long you have to play.
yeah, you
Nothing.
probably
It's gone.
you probably said something comparable to what I was going to say. It's just like, yeah, all of that can be very useful. And yeah, I'm just like I'm still sort of in the back of my head. I'm trying to like, what was I going to say?
Yeah,
There was
it
something
was
in
there.
there. But yeah, I think one of the things though too is that by taking that inventory and even coming up with like sort of you did the 30 minutes or whatever.
Mhm.
And I think there was a video that popped up in the Discord, and you know, as a general rule, I would say like it's one of those that I agree with the principles, but some of the the way that he talks about time. But and I'll just pull it up. But Clayton, what is his name?
Morris.
Clayton Morris did a video called "How to Find Time for Video Games as a Busy Adult," and then without the guilt. And he basically, all he does is he talks about like time blocking, and he calls it a superpower.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's a little insane, because I've known about time blocking. I've just been insane. Like, I'm not good at it, but I've known about it for years. But I think his application of it is pretty novel. And one of the things I really like that he did is, now I don't like the way that he frames game time as a necessity. I actually think that's like, I push back really strongly on that and be like, no, dude, this is not like like framing it as decompression is not helpful in a lot of ways. Like it sort of puts, I think, the weight of necessity on video games, which I don't think they're meant to be. Like, I don't think they're meant to carry that kind of weight. Like, they can be part of decompression. They can be, but whatever. Just, yeah, that's a distinction there where I'm just going to like say like, hey, I actually think that's not super helpful, sort of like categorizing it, using that categorization. However, I think like his strategy is sound. And one of those things actually means like you actually sit down and you take stock of like the time in your day and sort of, different windows. And what you'll find is that if you're like kind of rigorous, like you probably have more free time as a general rule. Even as an adult, as a busy adult, you probably have more free time available to you than you think. It just means that you have to be disciplined. Like, one of the things is you talked about, like, you play games while you're on the elliptical. That's like one of your primary, and it's like, and I think that it's like you can sort of do some multitasking, but it's like you can sort of, I think, build in somewhat reasonable expectations for maybe not daily, but like a certain amount of time per week. And that number could be higher. It just means that you have to be disciplined in sort of in structuring that and building that in, and I think that's I would recommend the video. I think it's like worth a watch. Again, I think some of the way he talks about games, again, sort of like almost putting it in that sort of like, I need my video game time. You don't, you just don't. Like, there are things that are needful, and then there are things that are good, but aren't necessary. Video games are good, but not necessary. So I think just, employing like sort of like taking just a sort of inventory of time and how you use your time throughout the day. And then sort of like, building in that time, using time blocking to actually build in times where you are free to do that. That's a useful idea. I think that's actually a good idea. And that's like, I would recommend that to a lot of people. Just like who want to just understand, that you are, that, you do have sort of, you do need to be responsible. And, just, I think another sort of even comparable to that, all right, sort of piggybacking off this, and then is when we read the book Minimalism by,
which in digital minimalism,
not digital minimalism,
essentialism.
Essentialism, that's what it is.
Yeah, love that book.
Not minimalism, essentialism by is it McEwen?
Yeah, yes.
Is it
Greg McEwen?
McEwen. He talked a little bit, and this is something that as Byron, especially as Byron gets older, and I think this is, especially for kids, like, and I think it'd be useful for adults even, but he talks about like a token system that they implemented for their kids in regards to screen time. And there's a whole sort of like hierarchy there where it's like, you get a certain amount of like stock, you get a certain amount of these tokens that you can be redeemed for screen time. and then you can sort of earn more by doing extra chores. You can earn more by sort of engaging in what I think Mark Erickson at one point in time, what's the term but there's like basically consumptive type hobbies, which is like, I think that's the term he used, which is like video games, where you go in and it's like you're engaging with it, but it's sort of like you're almost more reacting to it versus proactive or productive type hobbies, where it's like writing, drawing, kind of like reading a book, journal, whatever, like sort of engaging on sort of like, it's still recreation, but like you have the two different sort of categories of recreation, whereas one is maybe a little less intellectually stimulating, or demands less of you. I don't know, but I thought that was a useful distinction. But the whole thing is like screen time cost tokens, and sort of engaging in those other more like sort of disciplined type hobbies. Actually, you can earn more tokens. But the other side of that is like, again, essentialism has this whole, he sort of lays out the whole system. But like those token system is also tied to money, has monetary value. And at the end of the week, they can sort of turn those tokens in to get a certain amount of money. So it's like, it's kind of, you're teaching kids about time management. And I think that even model, like something comparable, can be utilized in homes, and even for adults can help people to think about how much time they spend in front of the TV, how they utilize. Again, it's sort of like, it's just, this is another little tool for thinking about this stuff as a general rule, like that I found to be helpful.
Yeah.
So time blocking and maybe even like a time token sort of system.
Yeah, and assigning these different things. And again, oh man, I feel like I caveat everything. So I recognize, hey, there are times in life, especially as you gain more responsibilities, that like, hey, your days might not work out the way that you planned. Okay. So your scheduled video game time, you might not get it. You might have a sick kid. Okay. Are you going to be upset at your kid for getting sick, and so that you no longer get to play your video game? No, I think that verges on entitlement. We want to be thankful when we are able to engage in video games, in entertainment, but we don't want to be reliant on it. And I think that's what you were getting at also, with Clayton talking about it. I do know that Clayton is one of those people who has a high capacity for lots of things. He does create a lot of content in a number of different fields, not just video games. That's kind of like on the small end of what he does. He's a journalist, a reporter. And so he's doing a lot of stuff. And so I think in his context, he's talking about recreation in general. And oftentimes that's video games. And so I think when he talks about it as a need, well, one, he's not a Christian. And so I think obviously stewarding your time is a different concept than just time management. But I do think also, like, I respect him because he has such a high capacity. And so I think if we were to talk about
prolific.
if we were to talk about, deserving video game time, he would be like way up here while I'm down here. You know what I mean? So I can let him, have his own thoughts on that. But I agree. It is useful to think about your days. Just, it is kind of basic time management, but trying to assign the time that you have each day before you get to it, so you're not just kind of floundering, and so that you don't forget things. It's kind of
having a plan.
Right. And so when you do have a plan, then hey, you can tackle all of your responsibilities, and if it all goes according to plan, then you will have time to also play some video games, or any other type of recreation or something like that. And those things you need to prioritize however it is. So like I do end up, most evenings, if I don't have anything going on, I will probably be watching a show with my wife, before we go to bed. She really likes that. just sitting together and watching a show. And so I do value that time over sitting in another room by myself playing video games because I know that she likes it. And she's my wife and I like her. So I put that a little bit higher on the priority list than just playing video games myself. So, anyways, again, kind of getting into the weeds a little bit, but yeah, time management is a huge one, so that you have time. Back when I was in college, it wasn't such a big deal. So long as I was able to get my work done, then we're good. But nowadays, as I have 3 kids, a wife, church, all kinds of stuff going on. Yeah, it's a much bigger deal to plan out these things.
Yeah, manage your time, or next thing you know, you're just gonna find it. It's like one of those things that if you don't manage it, you'll find it quickly just fills up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's sort of
yeah.
It's one of the, there's lots of principles that sort of state that.
Yeah. I think in terms of just like purely focusing on the backlog, tips and tricks, a guide to focusing on your backlog, because now is the best time to focus on your backlog. I think that's most of what I have in terms of just focusing. I do have another tip that's more about thinking through and kind of checking yourself before you pick up new games. But do you have anything else before we get there, just for specifically focusing on the backlog?
So there's 2 things I sort of wanted to talk about.
Cool.
One was the rule of 3 video from 8-Bit Joystick. Okay. I think this is a really just, this is a full sort of fledged system here that he has kind of come up with, where he basically picks 3 games, and I've actually found this approach to be pretty useful.
Okay.
But he picks 3 games to focus on at any point in time, or and he applies it to all sorts of different, like, books and movies and TV and whatever. But I think specifically he limits himself to 3, so he has variety. He picks 3 different types of games to focus on in that time. He keeps and there are a couple aspects to that. Like, he keeps sort of like physical reminders of those games. So it's like, even like you could, like, if you don't have cases for the games, the dude uses figurines and little statues and stuff, which is little, like, listen, I'm not going to judge you, but I'm going to judge you. Yeah. But yeah, he uses sort of these like physical objects to sort of stand in and create like physical space reminders, which I think is actually a really useful psychological sort of thing. Like, it's sort of the principle of like setting up an Ebenezer. Like, it's a physical reminder of X, Y, and Z. Like, whereas the Ebenezer is like, or the pile of remembering stones, or whatever you want to call them. It's like, it's there to remember the good that God has done, where it's like, but we exist in physical reality, and that having that physical touch point actually is helpful. So he does the 3. The other thing that he does is he keeps like a little journal, and he sort of writes some of his thoughts, where like progress in the game and all that stuff. And I think engaging in that kind of behavior actually is also useful, as well as I think it's actually cultivating some healthy thoughts and like it helps you to think more about the games that you're playing instead of just being a mere consumer. So overall, I think that rule of 3 package from 8-Bit Joystick is a pretty great resource. Just as far as like, just, hey, I think that's one of the best sort of like comprehensive systems I've seen in a minute. I really like it. I think the only other tip that I have, and hopefully I'm not stepping on your toes, is like,
no,
if you're playing a game, and there was a video that popped up, but there was a video that popped into Discord that sort of talked about it, but it's one of the rules of the beatdown. If you're playing a game and you don't like it, it's okay to quit. Like
Mm.
we have the solid 60 rule and the beatdown rules, which is like, it's talking about solid 60 minutes, like give a game an hour. But really the spirit of that is like, give the game the appropriate time. And if you don't like it after, sort of like if you're playing like a 100-hour JRPG and you've got like 5 hours into it and you're just like, or even 2 hours, but like you've not just like a flash in the pan kind of thing, but like you've sunk some time in it. You've tried to engage with the systems. You've tried to push through and you're just like, I just can't for whatever reason. It is okay to just say it's not for me
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of write it off and move on. I think like we have abandonment as a viable, end state for scoring within the beatdown for this very reason, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you're playing a game and you're just not that into it. And it, instead of forcing yourself to like sort of beat a game that you just don't want to play, it's okay to just be like, to just be done with it and to just walk away from it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's definitely a good tip. Even if it's been rated highly, even if it's a game that you've really wanted to play at some point. There have been games even within the past year, that we've played for this podcast that I've said, this is a great game, but it's not for me.
Or
and I
this is a really terrible game and it's not for me.
That's true. That's true. We have had one of those this year as well that you have committed to finishing. But
I am not a smart man.
there have been other games that I recognize. Hey, this is great. I don't have the time, the bandwidth, and it's just not. It doesn't do for me what I know it does for other people, for one reason or another. Yeah, it's okay to quit. That sounds kind of funny saying it out loud, but when it's something as low stakes as entertainment, then yeah, I agree. It's okay. So you were not stepping on my toes. The tip that I had that has been helpful for me in slowing down the acquisition of new games is the resolution that I have that there is an assumption that anytime I purchase a new game, that I can reasonably play it within the next year. So what that has meant for me, when it comes to the beatdown, the rule set that we have, is that for the most part, I will say 90% of the time, maybe 95% of the time, the games that I purchased the previous year are going to be moved into the games that I want to play for the next year as the beatdown kind of rolls over. There have been games that have fallen through the cracks. I'll be honest. One in particular is Unicorn Overlord, which I've heard is a fantastic game. I did not realize when I picked it up that it's 60 hours long. And so when I did, even though it was in kind of like the first runnings for games that I wanted to play through this year, because I bought it at the end of last year, that did not make the list because of how long it was. I didn't realize it when I picked it up. So that one's kind of floundering around. But for the most part, it really helps me to consider, okay, I want this game, but do I really want this game? It might be on sale. It might be a good time to pick it up, but do I really want it enough that I'm making a commitment that I'll be playing this within the next year or, 2 years, depending on the game, whatever. But at least in a reasonable amount of time. So, and I say over the next year because of our beatdown rule set. So that's the way that my mind has been wired, but it does need to be within a reasonable amount of time. And so having that concrete time works for me really well.
And I think that that's sort of, again, even there, it's sort of like a useful framing. It's like one of the things I'm doing this year is I'm not spending, like I'm spending gift money or cards or trade-ins, but but I'm not spending additional money, like money that, like if somebody gave me birthday money, but it's like, I'm not spending like money that I earned by working, to buy video games this year. And it's like, I think even sort of like, because like part of it is like, an easy way to sort of address your backlog is to not add to it. So it's like, yeah, it's like you're adding sort of that friction there where it's like, I'm not like, unless I'm planning on potentially playing this next year, I'm not buying it. Whereas like, I think it's actually useful to sort of just like set up to slow down sort of like the acquisition sort of phase there, or just like even sort of fight against like the idea to just merely acquire, things at time. But like,
Right.
yeah, just sort of build in sort of useful and, you know, friction points, where it's like for me, it was like, hey, not spending any work money on video games this year. It's like it's a year long, and it's like it's a window of time, like, or there's sort of like there's a reasonable markers. Like last year for me, it was like I'm not buying anything until I hit -10 on the beatdown, where it's like I'm going to beat 10 games, or I'm going to address 10 games off my backlog, and then I'll give myself like permission to sort of pick up a few more things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think those kind of like, yeah, again, it's sort of like, it basically boils down to like, be intentional with your time, be intentional with your money. Like if you do those things, you'll be fine. But it does mean that you have to take stock of stuff. You have to think through these things. There's, and maybe none of these things work for you, but they're, I don't know, then find something that does.
Yeah.
I know. And if you find something that does, then let us know about it so that we can, adapt it. But that sort of, I guess, leads us into like, sort of, yeah, I don't have any, I guess what I'm saying is I don't have anything else. I think just like I said, this is sort of on the more practical side. It's like, hey, here's some things that you can do. Like if you are serious about wanting to address your backlog, like also one last thing, don't do the whole stupid thing that's like, I'm going to eliminate my backlog in a year. That's stupid. Nobody does it unless it's like 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
And if your backlog is only 5 games deep, then you've got other fish to fry. I've seen probably at least half a dozen videos where people are like, I'm going to beat down my backlog. And then you see the video a year later where it's like, I didn't beat down my backlog. And it's like, well.
Yeah. So here's my thought on that is I think it's actually pretty similar to losing a lot of weight. Okay. In that you have to be, for something like that, you have to be hyper focused. When you want to lose weight sustainably, you don't change your diet overnight and change your routine and your exercise routine all overnight and say, I'm going to hit the gym every single day and I'm only going to eat chicken, broccoli, and rice at every meal. That is a recipe for burnout pretty quickly. And so obviously, yeah, it's different. The similarity, the reason I bring that up is because often when it comes to something like focusing on games that you have, like the reason that you've gotten to the place where you have more than you can play is because you have a proclivity to accumulating more games. So you take that into account. If you say, no, I'm only going to focus on my backlog, you're not taking into account, oh, I still have this proclivity. Like I can't just turn it off automatically. And so that's why we have these different rules within the beatdown again. I keep referencing that if the beatdown doesn't work for you, that's fine. I'm not even trying to get you to join the beatdown.
Yeah.
All that I'm saying is this is a way that we've made it work for us. And in it, that's why we've tried to balance the score out, because we recognize, hey, there is going to be a new game that comes out that you're going to want to play with your friends. Or in my case, that I'm going to want to play with my kids. Or
in my case, that I'm going to want to play by myself.
Well, of course, always those. But I'm thinking of ones that are like, hey, yeah, I'm gonna be way more lenient with a game like the Switch 2 Sports Club game that my daughter really wants that's coming out in October. Yeah, because she really wants it, and that's gonna be a fun family game.
Yeah.
Like that one, yeah, okay, I'll burn a backlog point, and I don't mind picking it up and playing it when I pick it up instead of waiting till next year. Like, that those are the things that with the losing weight analogy, like, yeah, you can do chicken broccoli rice for 2 days, and then you're gonna get sick and get sick of it and go through the McDonald's drive-through or smash a bowl of cereal or something.
Yeah, and if you're looking for like long-term change, long-term
Mhm.
sustainability, it actually requires like dozens of smaller steps building
Yep.
towards that with consistency.
Yep.
And I think that's like even sort of in the beatdown. And again, not saying that you have to do the backlog beatdown. You don't. Um, but like even within that, like it is that sort of like, here's some baby steps. Like do
Mhm.
this, do this, do this. And I think that's like that's part of it. It's like if you are serious about doing this, there are a lot of different tools, a lot of different like sort of tips and tricks and systems that you can implement. But like the fact is like one step at a time with
Mhm.
consistency.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
Like that's it. Just be
Yeah.
consistent. Take one step at a time.
And I get that if you want to take the shock to your system approach, again, with like losing weight or whatever, if you want to do that for a little while, that's fine too. And I think that goes back to my first tip of saying, hey, put an incentive to beat down your backlog. Say maybe, okay, out of all my backlog, these 3 games, I am going to play through these 3 games before I buy anything else. Okay? Then you have the freedom to pick up a new game after you beat those down, but you've at least beaten 3 games before you pick up a new one. Not saying this whole year I'm going to go without buying a single new game. Not recognizing that, hey, you don't know the future. You don't know if the next, I don't know, F-Zero game is going to be shadow dropped on, whatever your favorite video game series is, maybe the next game is going to be shadow dropped or something. Like you take these things into account. You're going to want to play newer games too. And so build in a little bit of wiggle room while keeping your focus. And like you said, yeah, I think that's the sustainable way to tackle your backlog instead of attempting to change everything overnight. But
Yeah, because it's about addressing like your long-term psychology.
Yeah.
But
Love
yeah.
it. So I'm just going to run down real quick because this is kind of a tips and tricks episode. The tips that we've mentioned so far are incentivizing your backlog games, taking stock of your backlog and prioritizing the games you want to play, creating a realistic analysis of how much time you can give to gaming and how long it would take to beat your backlog games. Clayton Morris's video about time blocking, the video on the rule of 3, which that's going to be in both those videos. Links for that are in the description or whatever. To take notes, to slow down a little bit while you're playing is helpful as well. Recognizing, hey, if you're not having fun with a game, it's okay. You don't have to finish that game. You can set it aside and play something else. It's okay to quit sometimes. And then finally, thinking through if and when you do pick up a new game, setting a timeline for when you're going to play it instead of just adding it to the pile.
Yeah. So and be consistent and take baby steps.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's the last little, I guess, pointer. Yeah. But yeah, and if we miss something, like if there's something like glaringly obviously, again, so we'll go back to that. Reach out. Let us know.
Yeah, that's
Let us
right.
know
We'd
how
love to
stupid
hear from you.
you think. You can tell us how stupid you think we are. We
Yeah.
won't like that much. We
Not a fan
do
of being
respond
called
better
dumb.
to affirmation.
Yes. Positive affirmations.
We like to be encouraged and affirmed. But yeah. feel free to reach out to us. And if they want to reach out to us, Josh, where can they get to us at?
That's right. We've mentioned the Discord a few times in this episode. That's probably the best place to go. But for all the places that we are on the internet, all the social media sites that we're on, check out our link tree. It's just linktree.com/the backlog breakdown. Check it out and then jump into the Discord from there.
Indeed. Before we sort of like really just kind of close this out, though, we do like to give shout outs to our community. Do you have any shout outs for anybody in the community?
I'm sure there's things that I'm forgetting, but I appreciated Nick bringing us along with him to his concert for Silversong Pickups. That was fun. Seeing that video.
I have not seen that one. That is, Porcho is,
Shout out to you, sir.
Shout out to Porcho, even if you are a scallywag and a descendant of thieves and villains, and you live in the literal sort of like hive of scum and villainy on Earth.
Yikes. Yeah. Talk about positive affirmations.
Well,
right?
He's not Canadian, so I guess we'll let him off the hook. That's a pretty good one. I think, I don't know. Everybody's been on fairly decent behavior. So I might have to try and find something nice to say about people. And I just don't know how I feel about that.
Once again, positive affirmation. I think we were just talking about this.
I like it when people affirm and encourage me. It doesn't mean I like encouraging and affirming other people.
I have to do it to others.
Yeah. But, I think, Paul was on as well. And you mentioned Nick, who is also a Playwell Network member. But I'm going to sort of like, and it's maybe not so much in the Discord per se, but I do want to sort of shout out the two other Playwell Network homies. I'm going to shout out Wesley Ray, the Henshin Dad himself, who is just being an absolute G. Not only is he holding down some pretty intense college level work stuff, like getting more certifications or getting like another degree or something. I mean, he's doing something crazy with that. I don't even know. It's like college in me, where it's like oil and water, where it's like, nah, college ain't for me. College is not for this guy, at least not right now. So he's doing some college stuff, but he's also like navigating, like, the family recently picked up and moved to be, so they just changed like whole states. And so they've been navigating that whole scenario. But then like he's got a family situation going on where he's like sort of like handling that. And it's just like, dude's a baller. Like, you want to talk, like we were talking about Clayton and how Clayton has like sort of that very like high capacity. Wesley Ray, the Henshin Dad himself, is like just absolute unit. So like, keep it up, Wes. You're just, you're killing it out there. And then, just Mark. I think Mark has kind of been, one of the biggest sort of like in the rebrand and sort of like the new direction and sort of all the little things that he does behind the scene, like, trying to figure out what the Substack is going to be used for and what that's going to look like. And just like, he's been doing like, journeyman's work over there, and just really, really appreciate him and his hustle. So shout out to those two dudes there. And of course, Paul, because Paul has been like just an absolute unit of his own. Like, not like don't make it weird, boys. Just don't make it weird. But like Paul has sort of like shown up. Well, I'm just telling the audience to not make it weird, not you. Like, don't make it weird, audience. But like Paul has, like sort of with the phone call stuff, like it's been really great having him on those.
Yeah.
And sort of like his willingness to sort of, and his just sort of like take some time and hang. And also let us know that we're absolutely stupid for just, he's like, I don't know why you guys are doing this to yourselves. And it's like, well, love of the game, baby. Love of the game.
There you go.
Or
Paul?
the games.
I like that. I like that. Paul has been on the ball. He's been on all the phone calls.
You ruined it. You
Did
had
I?
to go there.
I mean, you punned before I rhymed.
So. I think like the sleep deprivation is getting to me, and then you rhymed. I
loopy.
punned. It's like it's just all it's coming apart at the seams here now at this point. So all that being said, I think this is a pretty good little nipper of an episode. Hopefully people like it. And again, they know where to get a hold of us, even if they don't. And so until next time, what should they do?
Dudes, keep beating down your backlogs and we'll keep breaking down the benefits.
Do you think that this is like a really close-up shot of two small crabs? Or were those really big crabs?
How do you know they're even real?
They're imaginary crabs. Jimpleton, please tell me we can go look for imaginary crabs. Can we?
How would you look for something that's imaginary?
Oh, that's the best thing to look for. War has come to Krynn, a war building for centuries as dragons and gods drift into myth and legend. This is the war that will bring an end to it all, or restore what was lost for good. Dragonlance, The Thorns of War, is an actual play Dungeons & Dragons podcast. Available everywhere in May. Subscribe today.